The husband of the black woman signed the divorce documents with the mistress standing beside him, and the judge made them regret doing so. The chill in the courtroom appeared to numb even the soul. But more than anything, Jasmine's blood was boiling at the triumphal smile on the blonde mistress's face, who had herself handed a paper fan as if she were attending a play in the theater. Her husband, Robert, gold pen poised between the tips of his fingers, hesitated for perhaps a fraction of a second before signing the divorce documents, smiling in approval at the woman seated behind him. At last discharged from this complicated entanglement, Jessica, the mistress, spoke loudly enough for all to hear, smoothing out her platinum hair with a dramatic movement. Now Robert can live the kind of life he deserved all along with someone more appropriate. What they didn't know is that Judge Martinez, a Latin American man with more than 30 years on the bench, had seen his share of similar spectacles and was about to make that hasty jubilation turn into their worst imaginable nightmare. Jasmine Williams was 34 when she found out that her 12-year marriage was a meticulously built deception. She had a business administration degree and had given up career aspirations to help Robert pursue his entrepreneurial ambitions, believing that they were creating something together. Her savings, her commitment, her faith, had all served as gasoline for his achievement, and seemingly to fund his affair with a secretary who always greeted her with thinly disguised disdain. Over the last few months, the hints had been accumulating like bricks against a wall. Robert showed up late with ever more fanciful excuses, the honeyed scent that filled his blouses, the irritable Big Ness when she attempted to discuss the future. But the last straw was when Jessica at a corporate function went out of her way to say too loudly, "Wow, Robert, your wife has a very natural tan. It must be genetic, right?" The most miserable part wasn't even the betrayal, but the deliberateness of it. Jessica went out of her way to take pictures at Jasmine's favorite eating places, sporting pieces of jewelry that she knew were gifts given by Robert that he claimed he couldn't afford. It was an active campaign of erasure, as if attempting to demonstrate that a woman such as Jasmine ought never to have filled that role in the life of a successful man. For months, Jasmine avoided noticing the pitying glances of her neighbors, the rumors that ceased as soon as she appeared at social events. How the former friends of the couple shied away from her gaze, as if she had turned invisible in her own existence, an inconvenient shadow who needed to be quietly eliminated. But as they sat in triumph, figuring out how to split the wealth in the best possible manner for Robert, Jasmine's face seemed to keep a secret of resignation behind something much stronger. Her eyes, which sparkled with quiet resolve, had secrets that would turn the game of a willing hearing into something entirely different. Robert's attorney, a man in a costly suit who spoke to Jasmine as if she were a piece of furniture to be swept aside, handed her the papers. "Your turn to sign so we can finally bring the matter to a close in a civilized way." Jasmine grasped the pen, the heavy feel of all eyes on her. For an instant, she let them think they had succeeded absolutely. The air in the room was heavy with silence, punctuated only by the impatient tapping of Robert's pen on the table. If you have ever had to drink the bitter cup of betrayal and humiliation, you will understand that the most effective revenge is not in anger, but in intelligence. Subscribe to the channel because what transpired in the next couple of minutes served to show that underestimating an injured woman, particularly one who has mastered playing the game better than her own oppressors, can be the most expensive error of anyone's life. Humiliation had not begun in that courtroom. It was the product of a careful campaign of devaluation engineered by Jessica over months, taking every moment to reinforce that the kind of woman Jasmine was should never have replaced the wife of a successful businessman like Robert. It began subtly. Jessica, as a newly appointed executive assistant, went out of her way to correct Jasmine in public at company gatherings. "Wow, how fascinating your way of pronouncing that French word is," she would say with a forced smile. "It must be challenging when you did not have them as a kid, isn't it?" During company picnics, Jessica dominated the discussions on pricey wines and overseas vacations, always throwing sly glances whenever Jasmine confessed she had never been to some countries. Robert deserves someone to go with him in these higher-end places, she whispered to other wives, loud enough for Jasmine to overhear. The final straw was the company's anniversary party. Jessica had planned everything, renting out an elite country club, where Jasmine looked uncomfortable sitting among the largely white and upper-class patrons. At dinner, Jessica got up to give a speech. "I would like to offer extra gratitude to Robert, always so open in his own choices," she remarked, stopping thoughtfully. "It is interesting to witness how he celebrates diversity even when it is socially difficult." The uncomfy silence that remained after was interrupted only by a few anxious chuckles. Jasmine sensed everybody's eyes on her, partly in pity, partly in covert accord with the toxic remark. Robert, who ought to have come to the defense of his wife, simply looked down and toyed with his napkin. That evening in the car, when Jasmine accused Robert of Robert's behavior, he blew up. "You're paranoid. Jessica is professional, capable. Perhaps you need to take a leaf from her and not fabricate intrigues." "Fabricating intrigues," Jasmine said, astounded Robert. "She all but announced in public that you stooped to marrying me." "That wasn't what she said, and you know that. You're distorting everything because you're envious of her education, the way she carries on in society." His words had been like a slap in the face. In that moment, Jasmine understood that the emotional betrayal had been well underway before the physical one. Robert had already picked his side, and it wasn't hers. The months that followed were a masterclass in psychological humiliation. Jessica started showing up on Robert's social media photos, always at work functions where Jasmine didn't attend. "Important work conference," he told her, "not suitable for wives." But when Jasmine found out that Jessica was sharing stories from the same conferences in candlelit restaurants with champagne, the deception became clear. She confronted Robert once more, this time with screenshots of the posts. "This is work, Jasmine. If you don't trust me, perhaps the issue is with you." He came back with a coldness she had never previously witnessed. "Jessica understands my business world. She speaks 3 languages, has an MBA, knows the right people. Sometimes I need someone who can adequately represent the company." The word properly echoed in Jasmine's mind for days. It was confirmation that in her husband's eyes she would never be enough. Not because she was incompetent or worthless, but because she carried a mark that he now considered inconvenient for his social aspirations. The situation reached its lowest point during a parent-teacher meeting at the private school where Jasmine worked as an educational coordinator. Jessica accompanied Robert to discuss opportunities for educational partnerships between the school and his company. During the meeting, Jessica made a point of mentioning her concerns about the quality of teaching. "Not that I'm questioning the coordinator's competence," she said, smiling at Jasmine, "but it might be interesting to bring in outside consultants with more international credentials." School principal, a white woman from a traditional family, seemed to seriously consider the suggestion. Jasmine watched helplessly as Jessica planted seeds of doubt about her professional ability in the very place where she had built a solid career over the years. After the meeting in the parking lot, Robert got straight to the point. "Jessica is right about the school needing to modernize. Maybe it would be better for you to look for something more suited to your profile." "Suited to my profile," Jasmine repeated, feeling anger rising. "What profile, Robert? Just say it. You know what I'm talking about," he replied, avoiding her gaze. "Places where you feel more comfortable." At that moment, Jasmine understood that she had lost not only her husband, but also the illusion that love could overcome deeply rooted prejudices. Robert wasn't just falling in love with another woman, he was ashamed of his own choice to marry her, but Jessica made a crucial mistake. In her arrogance, she completely underestimated the woman she was trying to destroy. For months, Jasmine had remained silent, not out of weakness, but out of strategy. Every humiliation, every poisonous comment, every look of contempt had been carefully filed away in her memory. Jasmine Williams was not just an educational coordinator. She was a woman who had grown up facing subtle and not so subtle prejudice. Her Entire life, she had learned that the best way to deal with discrimination was not direct confrontation, but meticulous preparation for the right moment to act. And while Robert and Jessica planned their future on the ruins of her marriage, Jasmine was already 3 steps ahead, devising something that would turn their arrogance into their own trap. They thought they knew the game, but they had no idea they were dealing with someone who had spent her entire life learning to play better than her opponents. What they didn't know was that every act of contempt had strengthened something within her that privileged people could never understand, the quiet determination of someone who had weathered much worse storms and learned that true strength comes not from anger but from intelligence applied at the right moment. The discovery came unexpectedly during a routine visit to the bank to check joint account statements. Jasmine had noticed some strange transactions and decided to investigate personally, taking advantage of the fact that Robert was on yet another of his urgent business trips with Jessica. The manager, Mr. Thompson, a cordial man who had known the couple for years, seemed uncomfortable when she asked about the recent transfers. "Mrs. Williams, perhaps it would be better to speak with your husband in the room," he said, not looking at her. "Why? It's my account, too," Jasmine said stoutly. "I have a right to know where our money is going." Only after some reluctance did Thompson disclose news that chilled Jasmine's blood. During the last 6 months, Robert had wired over $200 0 to an account in Jessica Martinez's name. The mistress had even hyphenated her last name to make it sound more businesslike. Moreover, he had established a personal line of credit with the house as collateral, all without informing her. "There's one more thing that's disturbing," Thompson whispered softly. "Your husband came here last week with divorce papers, inquiring about procedures to turn over all the assets to his name. He told her you had promised to sign everything." The world tilted on its axis for Jasmine. Robert wasn't going to get rid of her. He was systematically stealing all that they had accumulated together, setting the stage to take everything and leave her with nothing. The meanness went even further than she had thought. That evening, when Robert phoned from Boston with his standard explanation, Jasmine was able to maintain a steady voice. "How's the conference, honey? Very productive. I'm learning a lot from the partners here," he answered, not knowing that Jessica had snapped a photo of them clinking champagne glasses over a cozy Miami dinner just 2 hours prior. "That's great, Robert. I'm very proud of you." The silence at the other end of the line was telling. He hadn't been looking for support. He'd been looking for confrontation. Her niceness surprised him, and for an instant he appeared nearly guilty. "Jasmine, we need to talk when I get back." "I know," she said quietly, "and I'm ready for our talk." But Jasmine's preparation was not an emotional one. It was tactical. The next morning, she found herself looking for something she never imagined she would require. A lawyer who handled heist, stakes divorces, and asset fraud. Dr. Patricia Leon's office was in a high-rise downtown, and her reputation was the stuff of legend. Famed for destroying cheating husbands on the witness stand, she was particularly dreaded by men who attempted to conceal assets during divorce actions. "So, Mrs. Williams," Dr. Leon said after listening to the entire tale, her eyes blazing with predatory intensity, "your husband believes he's playing chess, but he's playing checkers, and you want to learn the true rules of the game?" The lawyer, a 45-year-old Latina who had come from a poor ghetto and gone on to graduate from Harvard, knew just what kind of discrimination Jasmine was up against. "Men like your husband think that women like us are satisfied with the scraps they throw our way. They remember that we know more about hunger than they do, and that makes us more resolute." Dr. Leon's strategy was straightforward and catastrophic. Jasmine was to keep playing the role of the submissive, battered wife while in secret videotaping Robert's every move financially. Above all, she was to prod him into moving quicker, and that would make him blunder in self-confidence. Arrogant men always hang themselves with their own rope. The attorney elucidated, "Our role is simply to give them enough rope." Within the ensuing weeks, Jasmine was a consummate actress. When Robert returned from his business trip, she greeted him with a special dinner and a soothing discussion of the future. "I know we haven't been happy, Robert. Perhaps it's time we considered what's best for both of us." The look of relief on his face was pathetic. He had set himself up for a monumental struggle, and discovered apparent submission. Jasmine, you're handling this so well. I knew you were special all along. His words stuck in her throat like shards of glass. But Jasmine smiled. I just want you to be happy, Robert. Life's too short to live pretending. Emboldened by his wife's tolerant nature, Robert grew reckless. He started speaking out freely of his intentions, believing that he had won the war before he had even officially declared it. Jessica is right about a lot of things, he remarked one evening while Jasmine ironed his shirts. She made me see that I was holding myself back, you know, accepting a life that no longer reflected who I was. I see, Jasmine said mechanically, ironing. Jessica seems like a very enlightened woman. She has a broader, more sophisticated world view, and honestly, Jasmine, I think you would also benefit from a fresh start, finding someone more compatible with your lifestyle. The casual cruelty of those words could have destroyed the woman Jasmine was 6 months earlier, but the woman she was becoming just smiled and continued ironing while mentally adding another piece of evidence. The dossier she was building. Jessica, for her part, interpreted Jasmine's apparent resignation as a total victory. She began showing up at social events where she knew Jasmine would be present. Always clinging to Robert's arm, sporting expensive jewelry and designer dresses that clearly cost more than a pedagogical coordinator's monthly salary. At a school charity party, Jessica made a point of approaching Jasmine during the intermission. Jasmine, dear, you seem so serene lately. It must be a relief not to have to pretend anymore, right? Pretend what, Jessica? Jasmine asked calmly, taking a sip of her sparkling water. Why, that you belong in this world. Jessica laughed, gesturing to the elegant hall. It must be exhausting trying to fit in places where you clearly don't feel comfortable. You're right, Jasmine replied, surprising Jessica with her agreement. It really is exhausting to pretend to be someone we're not. Jessica interpreted the response as an admission of defeat and smiled victoriously. I'm glad you're finally being honest with yourself. Robert deserves someone who can accompany him in all aspects of his life. What Jessica didn't realize was that every poisonous word, every gesture of superiority, every display of cruelty was being carefully catalogued. Jasmine had learned to turn humiliation into fuel, and each insult only strengthened her resolve. Dr. Leon was impressed by the amount of evidence Jasmine had managed to gather in such a short time. Recorded conversations where Robert openly discussed the transfer of assets, screenshots of Jessica's social media showing a lifestyle impossible on a secretary's salary, bank statements revealing systematic transfers, and even photos of business trips that were clearly romantic. Vacations, you have a talent for this, commented the lawyer, leafing through the dossier. Many clients come here with a broken heart but no evidence. You came with both a broken heart and evidence to fix it. The decisive moment came when Robert, drunk with his own arrogance, made the mistake Dr. Leon had been waiting for. During a romantic dinner he thought was private, Jessica filmed him toasting to our uncomplicated future. In the video, he spoke openly about how he had solved the problem of the division of assets and how they would soon be free to live as they deserve. Jessica, wanting to show off her victory, posted excerpts from the video on her social media with hashtags such as #newchapter and #lifedeserve. What she didn't know was that Jasmine had created a fake profile specifically to monitor her posts, and every piece of evidence she voluntarily posted was being archived. They're handing themselves over, said Dr. Leon, almost incredulous at their stupidity. It's almost sad how predictable they are. The night before the divorce hearing, Robert came home almost euphoric. Jasmine, tomorrow will be a new beginning for both of us. You'll see that this decision is the best thing that could happen to us. I know it is, Robert, she replied, adjusting his tie with the tenderness of a devoted wife. I'm sure tomorrow will be a day neither of us will ever forget. He interpreted her words as gratitude in advance for his generosity in not making the divorce more complicated than it needs to be. What he didn't know was that Jasmine had spent the previous night reviewing every document, every piece of evidence, every piece of proof that would make the next morning the beginning of the end for him and Jessica, while Robert slept soundly beside her. Dreaming of his new life of freedom and privilege, Jasmine lay awake, not with anxiety, but with anticipation, For the first time in months, she smiled genuinely, not a smile of submission or resignation, but the smile of someone who knew exactly what was about to happen. On that last night, as Mrs. Williams, she rose quietly and looked out the bedroom window. The city slept, unaware that in a few hours, a woman who had been systematically humiliated and underestimated would prove that true strength comes not from arrogance or privilege, but from intelligence applied at the right moment. Robert and Jessica thought they knew the rules of the game. What they didn't know was that Jasmine had spent months learning a completely different game. One where patience, strategy, and meticulous documentation trumped arrogance and prejudice. And now, finally, it was time to show them how that game was really played. The expression on Judge Martinez's face changed completely as he reviewed the papers Robert had signed so confidently. His eyebrows furrowed as he read the terms of the agreement, and a heavy silence fell over the room. "Mr. Williams," replied the judge, slowly putting down his glasses, "did you thoroughly read this document prior to signing it?" Robert appeared puzzled. "Yes, Your Honor, it's a straightforward consensual divorce." "Straightforward?" The judge rapidly flipped through the pages, his tone becoming gravely serious, "because it says here that you are consenting to give your wife 80% of the property in marriage, as well as a lifetime alimony of $8,000 per month." The blood left Robert's face. That's incorrect. That's not the form my attorney drafted. Jessica sprang out of the chair, the fan crashing to the floor. "What's happening, Robert? You told me everything was okay." Dr. Leon stood up graciously. "Your Honor, I would like to elucidate the facts. My client has been the victim of an orchestrated attempt at marital fraud for the last 6 months. She opened her leather briefcase and started putting documents on the table with the precision of a surgeon. I have here bank statements of unauthorized transfers amounting to $247,000 in an account under the name of Jessica Martinez." Jessica went pale. "That's a lie. I also have transcripts of conversations where Mr. Williams admits to embezzlement of marital properties and talks of scheming to leave my client in poverty." Dr. Leon pushed the record button on a tiny tape recorder. Robert's voice resonated within the room. "Jessica is correct about so many things. She had made me see that I was short, changing myself, accepting a life that no longer reflected who I am." The tape went on with Robert explaining how he had fixed the issue of asset division and how they were going to be able to live as they should soon. Robert attempted to rise to his feet. "That was out of context. You can't." "Silence." The judge struck his gavel forcefully. "Is there additional evidence, Doctor?" "Yes, Your Honor." She brought out social media printouts. Ms. Martinez carefully chronicled her expenditures of the stolen funds, taking pictures of high-end restaurants, high-priced vacations, and jewelry bought on marital funds. She shared one of the photos with Jessica toasting champagne in a restaurant as captioned, "Finally, living the life I deserve, #new chapter, #life upgrade." She even went ahead and recorded and posted a video where the two are celebrating that they are complication-free and are toasting to a baggage-free future. The video was played featuring Robert and Jessica at an intimate dinner with him quite obviously stating, "Tomorrow I'll sign the papers and we'll finally be rid of this uncomfortable situation." Jessica started stammering frantically. "Robert, you told me she had agreed to everything. You assured me there would be no problems." "Shut up, Jessica," Robert erupted, recognizing that her every utterance merely substantiated the charges. Judge Martinez leaned forward, indignation etched in his tone. "Mr. Williams, you not only tried to cheat your wife, you had the nerve to bring your accomplice into this courtroom like some kind of trophy." Dr. Leon pressed on unrelentingly. "Your Honor, we also found that Mr. Williams used the marital residence as collateral on loans meant to fund his mistress's lifestyle without my client's permission, and more. He was arranging a month's vacation in Europe with Ms. Martinez on money that legally would be my client's come divorce time. She brought out receipts for first-class airline tickets and stays at 5-star hotels. Approximate cost of the trip, $75,000. Jessica started shouting at Robert. "You assured me this was within the law. You told her she was just a plain woman who would take anything." "A plain woman," the judge echoed, finally turning to Jasmine. "Ms. Williams, Do you have something to say? Jasmine rose to her feet with complete dignity. Only that I married the wrong man, Your Honor. But I've learned that real education is not from where we're born or whom we marry. It is a product of how one meets challenges. Robert attempted one last desperate throw. Jasmine, we can settle this among ourselves. It doesn't have to end like this. It's too late for bargaining now, Mr. Williams. The judge stopped him. On the evidence brought forward, I decree that this divorce shall be adverse, not amicable. The gavel descended with a crash. I order the freezing of all Mr. Williams' accounts instantly, the reversal of all unauthorized withdrawals, and an investigation into marital fraud. Jessica slumped into her chair, breathing softly. My God, what have we done? Robert continued to stand, shaking, finally coming to comprehend that he had been maneuvered totally by the woman he had considered to be inferior. How? How did you do it? Jasmine gazed at him with crushing serenity. You underrated me, Robert. You thought I would settle for any morsel because you think of me as beneath you. But you forgot that women like me learn young to be smarter than our adversaries. Robert's attorney desperately scrambled to reorder his documents, but it was obvious there was nothing to do. His client had sealed his own fate. Hearing is adjourned, declared the judge. Mr. Williams has 48 hours to refund all stolen money or risk criminal prosecution. As Jessica wept uncontrollably and Robert stood frozen in shock, Jasmine moved towards the door with Dr. Leon. She didn't glance back. She didn't smirk. She didn't become belligerent. At the door, she stopped only long enough to remark, Jessica, you were right about one thing. Robert truly did deserve someone of your caliber. Too bad he realized too late what that caliber truly was. The ensuing silence was interrupted only by the sound of Jessica sobbing and the echo of Jasmine's steady tread down the hallway. She had converted the biggest embarrassment of her life into the ultimate triumph she could dream of. But, although justice had been done in that courtroom, something far greater was about to ensue in Jasmine's existence. A change that would illustrate that real revenge is not annihilating your foe, but creating something they can never have. 6 months later, Jasmine signed the contracts for her own educational consulting firm in a modern office in the city center. The company already had 3 corporate clients and a growing waiting list for its workshops on diversity and inclusion. Ms. Williams, the final settlement has been approved. Dr. Leon informed her over the phone. You have received 70% of the assets, including the house, plus $180,000 in compensation. Mr. Williams also has to pay $3,500 in alimony per month for the next 5 years. Robert had lost everything. His business went bankrupt as the investigation exposed other financial scandals. Jessica had dumped him as soon as she knew there would be no money remaining for the life of luxury she had envisioned. He now rented a small apartment as a salesman and was being sued by 3 different parties. The most ironic aspect, Jasmine said to her assistant, is that he attempted to lower me to stereotypes, yet at the end he exhibited precisely who he always remained, a weak, lying, and biased man. Jessica also paid a price. Unemployed, and her reputation tarnished after the tapes were leaked on social media. She relocated to a different city. Her "I deserve a better life" posts turned into viral memes for instant karma. At a networking function, Jasmine accidentally bumped into Robert in the elevator. He smiled awkwardly at her, obviously attempting to determine if she nursed a grudge. Jasmine, I wanted to apologize for all of that. She regarded him serenely. Robert, you did me a favor. You made me realize my true strength. The ultimate revenge wasn't watching him get wrecked, but creating something he would never have. A life founded on purpose, integrity, and true success. Now Jasmine taught universities how to make adversity into opportunity. Her life encouraged other women to never settle for anything less than they wanted, regardless of who attempted to make them feel less. Real education, she would say to filled halls, does not issue from a silver spoon but from a capacity to transform iron into steel under pressure. Undefined, if this tale of triumph over adversity hath moved you, Subscribe to the channel for more tales that demonstrate that brains always triumph over arrogance, and that our true strength is born exactly in the moments when others attempt to crush us.